Hello,
Hi,
how are you?
pretty good. So, do they hear us now or not yet?
Um, yes, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, we're in. So
And
basically,
do people register to this?
yes.
So, how many have registered?
I think Charlotte said about 35 or so earlier today.
Okay. I c- how do you can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Okay. And you've been to other sessions today?
I haven't done any others today, but I do them quite regularly, me and Charlotte.
Okay. So, is there, well, I guess, yeah. So we'll just wait till about 2:03 or something like that and begin then.
Yeah, we'll begin then. I'll just do like a really quick introduction, and then you can go ahead and share your slides, and then talk about the Human Rights LLM, and I'll field any questions. I'll answer any ones that I can answer, and then if there's any others, we'll go through them at the end.
Okay, and how long do you guys usually do this? Like,
Uh, It depends on how many questions we get. Usually, like your presentation will be like 20, 25 minutes. Sometimes they'll go on for an hour, sometimes it'll only be 30 minutes. It just depends.
okay, great. Sounds good. Let me just close the door here. And from many European countries like France, Germany, and so forth, the United States, Australia. Uh, and so I think personally, I think the different kinds of perspectives that are brought into the classroom are incredible. Some of our researchers are at the forefront of their field. In human rights, we have several people that are major researchers working on children's rights, working on immigration, working on forms of state crime, environmental justice, animal rights, and so forth. Um, Now, while I teach mostly at Mile End, which is Whitechapel, the LLM program is actually near Holborn Station. It's right zap in the center of London, right right next door to LSC, not far from King's, right next to a lot of big law firms and chambers, and not far from Covent Garden, and a lot of good places to wander around and visit. Our facilities are open to you. You'll be able to use them. There's also a law library not for so far away, which is a library that caters to all the University of London faculties, where you can just sit and work there. As you will see, once you join the department, we have a multitude of events. Practically, once the semester begins, almost every day, there's lectures from people around the world coming to talk about their topics. This is over and above what you do at class. This is stuff you're invited to. If you want to come, you go. If you don't want to go, you don't go. But those that are interested in different topics uh, uh, can just zoom in and get those emails and see what they can do, and what interests them and what they would like to go to. Um, the program itself is built in the following manner, and I didn't say at the beginning, I'm going to talk another, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes, and then it's going to be, I'll open it up for questions and answers, and we'll address any questions you might have. But the program itself, in order to get an LLM, you need 180 credits. 120 of them. So And a usual module is about 30 credits, but there are some modules that are 15 credits. But let's say you take a usual models, which is meets 3 times a week, 3 hours a week. It could be one time. I teach in slots of 3 hours. Then you have to take 4 modules, and that's in human rights. That's your specialist modules. And then you can take either 30 or 60 modules outside your specialism, and they can be built up of 30. It could be 2 courses, the 60, or it could be 3 courses, like 130 credits and 215 credits. You'll build it the way you want to build it. And then it depends. If you're doing a dissertation is worth 30 credits, then you only take 1 module outside the specialism. But if you don't do a dissertation, then you take 2 modules outside the, 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 the specialist modules. So basically, between 4 and 6 specialist modules, a dissertation, or if not, between 2 and 3 non-specialist modules of your choice. The dissertation itself is a major piece of work. Whoever does it receives a supervisor, someone from the law school, which meets with you throughout the year 3-4 times, and basically helps you or supervises you in how to write a good dissertation. The topics I know you need to submit the topic of your dissertation, but if you're working with a supervisor and you want to fine tune the topic, you can do that during the year too. And in many ways, the dissertation is, I think, an immensely important piece of work. It requires you to do your own research and to get a sense of what research is and what it demands from you. As you will see, once you begin looking at the modules, maybe some of you have already done so, the School of Law offers over 200 modules per year. And so you will need to do a kind of combination between that and between your specialty, which is human rights, if you take that, and between all the other courses, which can be anything from robotics in the law to data protection to tax law, environmental studies, and so forth. What I would recommend is, aside from your specialty, is just to take things that you wouldn't otherwise take, but really fascinate you. If it's, I don't know, intellectual property, if it's banking, whatever it might be, I would choose according to what you think would be interesting. As I mentioned before, the dissertation itself is 30 credits. That's quite a lot. A good dissertation, and not a good dissertation, an excellent dissertation, in my opinion, is like an academic article. Now, all of you have already read academic articles. You'll be reading a lot more academic articles when you join the program. You have to start looking at what an academic article does, the way it does it, the way it raises an issue, the way it tries to solve an issue or address puzzles about an issue, poses something counterintuitive and tries to explain it, and so forth. What does the article do, how it does it, and not only its argumentation, which is what I would like you to begin thinking about when you're reading articles, because that's what an excellent dissertation does. Now, a dissertation, if I'm not mistaken, I don't remember if it's 10,000 words or 15,000 words, but it's quite a lot of words. You and you have to be a good writer. You have to be a decent writer to write the dissertation. But writing is your tool as lawyers. And so I would actually encourage people to take dissertations because it will allow you to develop ideas and thoughts you've had in a sustained manner with some kind of supervision. And it's not something you often get in life. And so I think it is something you should really think seriously about. I think writing is something that is not, you're a good writer or a bad writer. I mean, of course, there's different levels of writing, and each one of us writes. Some of us are great writers, some of us are not great. Many of the people in the program English is not their first language. In fact, not many, the majority of the people in our program, English is not their first language. And it's an opportunity to hone in on your language skills and on your English skills. And I think in general, you should take this as an opportunity, the whole program, and not only the dissertation, to improve your writing. Because, as I said before, as lawyers, writing is probably one of your major tools, if not the major tool you use at work, and you have to do it well and without mistakes. And the better you do it, I think the better lawyer you are ultimately. And so here you have an opportunity of many professors reading your work throughout the year, commenting on your work, commenting on your writing. And I think the dissertation, of course, is the kind of gem on top of the crown. And it is something you should think seriously about. Of course, if you're not into research and if you're not into writing, then I don't think it's a good idea. And instead of the dissertation, I would take a module. Now, our LLM aims to provide you with an advanced theoretical and empirical understanding of international human rights and humanitarian law. So by theoretical and empirical, the idea is to examine empirical issues that arise, challenges to human rights, violations of human rights, to look at how human rights tries to address these violations, and then to theorize that. Are human rights a good tool for advancing social justice? I mean, they are considered in many ways the moral yardstick of kind of global speak about justice. But is it a good tool? What kind of justice does it advance? What kind of issues are good to use human rights law in order to resolve them? What kind of issues human rights law does not address? We talk about torture, we talk about children's right. I just taught a large course about this past semester about women's rights. I was the only man in the room. 30 women were in the room. I thought it was a fascinating class, and we talked about women's rights in different countries and different issues, but also a lot about sexuality, about gender, about issues about feminism, issues that relate directly to women's rights to the human rights of women, to women's rights. And I think it was a fascinating for all of us. I must say, I also learned a great deal from the students in the class. because there were students from Pakistan and Nigeria and India and Turkey and Brazil and France and Germany, and everyone brought their own perspective and ideas and problems in their own country. When you're talking about the trafficking of women, when you're talking about domestic violence, when you're talking about sexual harassment at work, and so forth. I think courses like this are meaningful both for an intellectual reasons, but also for many other reasons that are very personable sometimes. We also teach, of course, many other courses in the human rights stream. We have one of the international experts on children's rights in the department. We have a lot of several experts on issues that are relating to refugees and migrants and so forth. And as part of this program, we also deal about the laws of war. And this last semester, I also taught a module about the laws of war, for example, and we dealt a lot with Ukraine and with Gaza and what the laws of war say about these incidents and about, let's say, hospital bombings or bombing of schools or the killing of civilians and so forth. But we also discuss the limits of the laws of war and why the laws of war are not always a great tool for understanding what is going on in the field. And we talk about, for example, the fog of war and how truth is one of the first casualties of every war. And the idea is not only to look at the application of the law and at casework, but also to look at the limits of the law and what the law can do for us, but also, just as importantly, what the law cannot do for us in our work. So we focus on different kinds of rights. There's political and civil rights. These are generally rights like the right to freedom of expression, the right to freedom of movement, the right to freedom of assembly, the right not to be tortured, the right not to be sexually harassed, and so forth. We also teach about social economic rights. These are rights that in order for you to enjoy them, the state must intervene, or there should be some kind of external intervention. So the right to education, the right to health care, and so forth. So without the state offering education, then the population does not enjoy the right to education. But then we need to speak about what is education, how does the state guarantee that everyone has education without discrimination, and so forth. And the same idea, without the state intervention, without the state putting money into healthcare, then the population does not enjoy the right to health care. So if political and civil rights, one could say the state has to refrain from torturing a person in order for the person to enjoy the right, in economic and social rights, the state has to do something in order for someone to enjoy the right. Of course, we talk about, as I mentioned before, the rights of women, the rights of children. We talk about the crimes of the powerful. These could be state crimes. So we have several modules that deal with the crimes of states. While every university in the country has a Center for Human Rights, there are only 2 centers in the world for state crime. One of them is at Queen Mary. We talk about corporate crimes. One of the major violators of human rights today are big corporations and the way they treat their workers, the way they treat the environment, and so forth. And as I said, we talk about migration and about the movement of people, about we look at the Mediterranean, which is now this mass grave of tens and tens of thousands of immigrants trying to cross from Africa to Europe and so forth, and we look at the rights of these immigrants. And these are questions and issues we discuss both sociologically and legally at the same time. And I highly believe that in order to understand the legal dimension, you need to also to understand the sociological and political dimension. These are the kinds of courses you can go on the internet and look at all our courses. This is just a sample of the few of the courses we give. I should add that we do not give all the courses every year. We give a sample every year. I don't know exactly which courses will be given next year. I have to apologize and say that I'm on sabbatical next year, so I won't be teaching. But some of my courses will be taught by other people, while other courses will be taught, we have a large team, so they'll be taught by many people in the department. But you can just go online and get the whole list. These are some of the people that are teaching on our program. You can go again into the Human Rights LLM and see who teaches there. It's not completely up to date, but it's more or less up to date. So you can get a good impression of who we are. I should say that often a course is not only about the topics that are taught in the course, but about also who teaches it. So look a lot and see if you're interested in studying with different people and what they're teaching. And often I would, as a student, if I liked a professor, I would try to study one or two or three, sometimes modules with the same professor. This is a few more people. Violetta works on immigration. Darag works on AI. Eva works on the implications of sanctions on human rights, and Phoebe works on the laws of war. So we have quite a crew, and many of them are really cutting edge in their fields. And then what are your career path if you do this? Well, you can be a cause lawyer, as in you can work in human rights and defend people whose rights have been violated. And it could be refugees or migrants or women that suffer domestic abuse or children's rights or anything that cause lawyers do. Some of my role models in life have been cause lawyers. They are amazing people that dedicate their life to basically social justice through the law. And I really think it's not the best paying career. You're not going to be paid like a corporate lawyer, but I can tell you your life is going to be very meaningful if you do this. You can also work as a lawyer in a human rights NGO. There's scores of human rights NGOs in most countries, and many of them kind of focus on different aspects of human rights. And you can join teams of human rights lawyers. And again, this is fascinating work. Several of my students have gone on to work with the United Nations and different UN bodies and so forth. There's think tanks that hire human rights lawyers. And then you can use your human rights degree to actually pursue other careers, like political careers, whether it's in local or national or even international sphere. As I mentioned before, we have alumni from well over 100 countries in this School of Law, and we try to create a network among our alumni so that they can help each other in the job market after people complete their LLM. And then hopefully in many years from now, when you'll be established human rights lawyers somewhere in the world, you'll take into your office some of our new LLM students that did their work in human rights in the LLM. We have several centers that you can volunteer or do. Some of them also accept interns, like the International State Crime Initiative has an intern project that, in fact, I'm working with 2 interns this year. There's the Border Center for the Legal Study of Migration and Displacement. We have a Center for Climate Crime and Climate Justice, a more theoretical center that deals with the theory of the law, Center for Law and Society in a Global Context, and the Human Rights Law Center. So there's several other centers, but these are, I think, that are the most relevant to people that do their work on human rights. And I think I'm going to stop here more or less. Let's see what time. Yeah, I've talked way too long. So why don't we, I'm going to stop sharing, and why don't we kind of open it up for questions, if that's okay? Yeah. And let me just say one more thing before I open it up for questions. I've been teaching for, I don't know, 25 years. When one of you has a question, it's almost 100% that several of you have the same question, but everyone is not sure about their question and whether it's a good question or a bad question. So let me say there are no bad questions. Every question is a good question. And often when you think you're the one that only has the question, half the classroom or more have the same question. So just feel free to ask anything you want about the LLM, about the human rights LLM, about the dissertation, about the courses, anything that. And I have here Karina, who's from the professional staff, and will often know much more about the issues you're asking, but I'll try to address them, and if I can't, then Karina will.
Thank you, Neve. I'll also go ahead and put in the chat our inbox that you can email if you think of any questions after this. But we do have a question. So can you explain how the structure is different if you take the LLM part-time?
That you're asking, or someone's asking? Or?
Someone's asked, yeah.
Okay, so the structure is not different. If Karina, correct me if I'm wrong. The structure of the LLM is not different. It's just how you're taking it differs. So you're still going to have to get the 180 credits in order to complete the LLM. But instead of doing the 180 credits in a calendar year, you're going to divide it over a longer period. And that means that you will just take less courses and do it over a longer period of time. So everything I said is relevant to you, but you're just doing it in a slower process. And almost always the people that do the LLM over a longer period are people that are working, and then they'll take one module a semester. So they'll take or a module and a half a semester, and then they'll finish it instead of in 1 year, in 2 years. And you can either raise your hand or you can write your questions in the Q&A. Karina, do you want to add anything to that? Or is that...
No, everything's correct. I know we have a lot of people who ask about like the timings for part-time, if they can take classes in the evenings, and relatively you just take the classes alongside the full-time students. You would just be taking less classes than them. So they're usually, during the working hours, unfortunately for those. Oh, we got a bunch of questions. Okay. Do you know when we will find out what the modules are and who the course faculty will be?
So do you know, Karina? I think
No, I don't.
so. I think so. I've submitted um, who will be here next year and who won't be here next year. And from what I understand, they're just in the final stages of finalizing what are the modules. And I think it's going to be very soon. But my suggestion would be to write that question in an email, and you'll get a much more precise response. And Karina, if you can, once you receive it, if you can forward it to Shalini, she knows the exact dates that it should be out.
Perfect. I will do that. Okay, someone has said I've enrolled for the laws LLM and not chosen a specific LLM. Can I take different modules for 180 credits, or do I have to take certain modules with certain ones?
So the I the so the way it works is this: if you're in a specialty, then basically all the specialties work more or less the same. So they have the 120 expertise, and then your 60 points the way credits you the way you want to do it. If I'm not mistaken, in a laws LLM, it's just that you. But Karina, can you correct me if I'm wrong?
I think that's correct. Yeah.
So in the laws of LLM, you don't have that aspect, and you
Yeah.
just basically do that. I now the question then is to me, and who asked that question? Um,
It was an anonymous attendee.
so what the the question for me would be, is that a good idea? Now, it is a good idea in certain circumstances, but what I would do is I would look at all the specialties first and see if there's one that's broad enough, because it would be nice to come and say in the end, oh, I also have a specialty, not only an LLM in law, but also a specialty when you're applying for jobs and things like that. So I would consider it strategically from your perspective, what would be the best thing to do. But if you just want to come and study because you want to open your mind, and I'm the last one to go against that, because I think it's very important intellectually to continue reading and writing throughout your life and continue learning, then yeah, go for it. Just do whatever you want.
Okay, we've got some good questions. I think you went over this one, but do you need to do the dissertation if you've been accepted into this program?
You don't have to. You can, and again, it's something um, that I would advise people to consider seriously, because it's a totally different kind of work. It's individual work. If you work alone, good. And if you are self-disciplined and you like reading and writing, absolutely, I would do it. If you like more of a structure and you want people to tell you this is what you have to do, then I probably wouldn't do it, because the dissertation is you. Yes, you get a supervisor. Yes, someone will give you advice, but it's your work. You choose the topic. You're going to have to do tons of reading and a lot of writing, and it's all alone in a sense. And it's very academic. So you have to think what it's about. There is no correct answer. Yes, I'll do a dissertation. No, I won't. It's about what fits you. Let's say if you're thinking one day, maybe I want to do a PhD in law, then definitely you should do a dissertation, because you'll get an experience if this is something you want to do. Because a PhD is a dissertation times 5 or times 8 or whatever. So I would do it if you're considering, if you're doing your LLM as a stepping stone to continue on in academia. If not, then I think it's open to who you are, what you like most, what is good for you, what is your comparative advantage? Okay, so when people ask me, what should I write about? I say, first of all, it has to come from the gut. It has to be something that interests you, that 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 fascinates you, that you care about. And 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 then I tell them, write something about that's very focused, not too broad, so you can enter a topic very deeply and kind of understand the topic in depth. But again, it's up to you and what you're good at. I will say that I had a student in one of my classes this past year that when she applied, she wrote she didn't want to do a dissertation. And then they give you a deadline. I think it's till January. So you have plenty of time to change your mind. But she didn't change her mind. And then come March or even April, and suddenly she decided she wanted to do a dissertation. And the administration told her it's too late and she can't do it. But so, but I think you'll get a good sense in at least sometime in the middle of the first semester. And you'll get a sense, do I want to take more classes? Do I want to kind of be more focused and try to become an expert on one little thing? And then I would decide it in such a way.
Piggyback off of the dissertation, someone asked if they're assigned a supervisor or do you get to pick one?
They're assigned a supervisor.
Thank you. Okay, this is another really good question. So Adalberto says, thank you very much for your talk. Is a socio-legal or interdisciplinary approach generally employed by academics when teaching the courses, or do some modules follow the more traditional legal versus everything else distinction?
So first of all, I do only socio-legal and more critical legal studies. And I would say that in the human rights LLM, it's almost all of us do that. In other LLMs, I think in other specialization, there's a lot of doctrinal law, a lot of much more casework, much more kind of the nitty-gritty, which is extremely important. I don't do that in my classes, and most of the human rights LLM people don't. That doesn't mean that they don't look at casework. They do, we do, and we analyze it, but it's much more what I would call law and context or critical legal studies. Yes.
Okay, I don't know if you'll be able to answer this one, but this says, I'm interested in business and human rights. Can you comment more on modules and academics focused in this area?
So economic and social rights, I hope it's being taught. It's called, the official course is comparative social and economic rights. I teach that, but I'm not going to be here next year, but hopefully someone else will teach it. That deals completely with the gig economy, with corporate violence, with corporate violations, and the whole economic sphere, because we cannot understand economic and social rights without understanding the economic sphere. And so you asked about business, it's much greater than business. You have to understand the kind of processes, the economic processes themselves. And indeed, I think in any law, you need to understand much more than the law itself. And I think that's important. That's how I teach. I can't vouch for everyone. There are a few other specific modules I don't know about next year that deal with the corporate world and business world. But I would also say that there are two other streams that are relevant. One is the climate. Any course that will be on climate justice. And I'm not talking about energy law, because energy law, they might deal with climate, but they're more aligned with the business world. If you're interested in a critique of the business world and how it creates social wrongs, then I would look into courses into climate crime and climate justice, and also into immigrants, because a lot of the movement of population across the world, one of it, of course, is war, another is climate change, and a third is poverty, right? And so to understand these things, you need to understand economic processes.
Thank you. Can we opt business law modules as modules outside of the LLM and human rights?
Can we?
And can anyone opt for business law modules outside of the LLM human rights?
So first of all, you have 60 credit points if you're not doing a dissertation that you can choose. If I understand correctly, if I understand the question correctly, let's say you're taking human rights and there are no business modules, can we take them? The answer is yes, but you have to take them among those 60 credit points that are not part of the human rights. And I would definitely do that if I were a human rights person. I think business is highly important to any understanding of human rights, because basically corporations today, many of the big corporations yield much more powers than states, and we need to understand that aspect of it. I would look carefully who's teaching the courses, how they're teaching the courses, and so forth. But I would definitely use those 60 credit points to do that.
Amazing, thank you. I think that's all of the questions, unless any pop through at the last minute. But for anyone still on here, I went ahead and put in our general postgraduate law inquiries email on there. So if you have any questions that we didn't get to or you think of after, go ahead and ask us there. And then I've also put Neve's academic profile on there that has his email in case you have any specific questions for him. But thank you to everyone that attended, and thank you very much.
No, wait, there's another question.
They just said thank you.
Thank you for the information.
Yeah.
My mom used to say that the most important questions are when you're half your foot is already outside the door. Suddenly you begin talking about what's important. But maybe that's not the case in this class, in this group. Yes, actually, I've done an LLP degree with special education. Okay, thank you guys for coming, and I hope to see some of you. I apologize. Next year I'm going to be on sabbatical and won't be teaching, but we have a great team, and I hope you join us and that you'll enjoy it.
Amazing. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your afternoon, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.